guys, and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we're going to be talking about the myths about photography and exposing the truths about what it really is like being a photographer, because most of the people who come up with these myths are people who are either not photographers or people who have zero experience in the photography industry. I like to compare this to a child doing surgery on a patient. It's not possible. The child has no experience or knowledge about doing surgery, and I like to think it's the same concept about these photography myths. People think they can do what we can do, but they cannot, because they don't have the experience that we have and they don't have the knowledge that us photographers have. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Myth number one is that I can just use my phone to take photos and a camera is overrated. An alternative for this is that my phone can produce the same quality photos as your camera. Now, before I get into this point, I just want to say that there is no shame in using a phone to take photos, because some phones take really nice photos actually. And when I started photography, I started using my iPhone to take photos. But there's a but. You cannot produce the same quality photos from a phone as a camera can. And if you go look at your photos on your phone that you've taken with your phone, if you go look at the size of that photo, the size is usually in kilobytes, and if you look at a camera, the size is usually in megabytes, and that's before editing. So myth number two is all you do is push a button. This myth gets to me the most because it explains something to me. If I'm shooting inside and then I decide to carry on the shoot outside, do I carry on pushing the same button? No, I don't. I have to adjust my camera settings, and sometimes there's softboxes or whatever involved. So there's a lot of things that come into playing with light. So if you think about it, photography is basically all about the science of light. And let's compare this to shooting with a phone. If I'm inside, I press on the person's face to focus on the face, and if I go outside, once again, I do the same thing, and the phone automatically exposes the photo to what it thinks is the correct exposure. Hint, what it thinks is the correct exposure. Moving on to myth number three, which is photographers charge way too much just for taking photos. Okay, so now I'm going to use a bit of mathematical magic in this point. Let's say the ideal salary for a South African, because I don't know what the ideal salary is for anyone in the world, so we're using South Africa. So the ideal salary is about 10,000 Rand a month, and this is for a person who is single and has no children. So they can live off of this amount. Okay, and let's say a client's ideal amount to pay a photographer is 150. Now let's say the person gets 7 shoots every month. 7 times 150 is 1,050 Rand. This is way off from 10,000 Rand. Okay, now let's say we charge you our usual amount of, let's say, 700 Rand for 7 shoots. That's going to amount to 4,900, which is still off from 10,000 Rand. A photographer cannot live off of that, which means we have to have a full-time job and run our photography business. For my second point of this same myth, and let's ignore the fact that we only get paid a certain amount every month. Now, I truly believe that us photographers are giving you a decent amount and we're not overcharging you. You really are getting what you are paying for. And what you are paying for is petrol costs, our actual service of taking the photos, and the last point is editing. Now, on average, I take about an hour to edit one photo. Now let's say a client asks me to do a photo shoot with 50 photos. That means I'm spending an hour for each of those photos, which is 50 hours. Okay, and remember, we have to have a full-time job as well. That means we only get to edit after we get home from work. So I usually get home from work at about 5. So that means I'm going to be spending many late nights editing photos. So believe me when I tell you that you are really getting your money's worth, and probably even more. So the fourth point is that photography is easy. Photography is not easy. You can see I'm losing my mind already. But it's so difficult. You're having to constantly be on social media promoting yourself. And like I said in the previous point, you spend so many hours editing your photos. And with regards to the social media, I hate social media. Says the one making YouTube videos. But it's true, I don't like to be on social media. I'm constantly having to post just to tell the world, hello, I'm here, hire me, you know. And I'm the type of person who doesn't like to talk to people on social media. I like to tell them things in person. So to do this job is a bit difficult for me because I have that trait. But other than that, it's also, there's so many photographers out there, so many. And people are always going for the cheapest photographer that they can find nowadays. Why are you doing that? These photographers that are charging so little have no experience, and people are hiring them to do weddings and engagements, like important things. I'm so flabbergasted right now. I don't know if that's even a word or if it's just a South African thing. I'll have to Google it. But I'm so shocked that people are doing this. These are important photos. Do not hire a cheap photographer. Rather spend the money and get good photos. So the fifth and final point for this mythbuster. Okay, no, we're not going to do that. So the fifth and final point is that Photoshop is associated with fakeness. Now, I don't completely agree or disagree with this point because before I started out photography, the first word that popped into my mind when someone mentioned Photoshop, it was fakeness, okay? Now, let's think about this. If you wake up one day with blemishes or a cut and a bruise, I don't know how you wake up with a cut or a bruise, but let's just say you woke up with that. And today just happens to be the day that I have a photo shoot. Now, I asked the photographer to edit it out because I wasn't born with them, okay? So, can someone please explain to me how this is fake? And I mean, it's so much better than just taking your phone and putting the softness all the way up or using that beauty filter that makes you look like you have absolutely no skin. So I would rather have that than that, if you know what I mean. And I know you do get those photographers who do use Photoshop and they do skin retouching like way overboard. But I mean, they are still learning and they haven't learned the right way yet. Another point I'd like to add to this myth is that Photoshop can be used to make things more realistic. Have you ever saw this amazing view and then you take a photo of it and you look at it and it just doesn't look the same? Well, that's when you go back to Photoshop and you can enhance the colors and play around with the photo to make it look more to what you saw in real life. And not only can you make something look more realistic, but you can make something look unrealistic. And I don't know, maybe you want to make the grass look purple for some reason, and there's nothing wrong with that because I mean the whole point of a photographer is to be creative, and Photoshop allows you to do that. So what are your guys' thoughts on the myths that I mentioned? Did you agree with them or disagree with them, or do you have something more to add to it? If you do, leave it down in the comments down below, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And I would also just like to thank everyone who subscribed to my channel. I think it was last week where I mentioned my goal to get 100 more subscribers by the end of August. So with that said, don't forget to subscribe to my channel.